Now, welcome to the first in a series of videos on how to cure bacon. So what we're going to do first is just look at the ingredients we've got, and I've already pre-weighed a lot of them to save a bit of time and make it easier on the video. So what have we got? Well, we've got some bay leaves here, so you can buy these from a shop. These happen to be from my father's garden, and they need to be actually crushed or stripped into pieces. We can do that in a second. We've got some pepper, black pepper that's been ground, and I'll put the actual weights of everything at the bottom of the YouTube video, so you can look at that in a second, but it's already weighed out as black pepper. 2 bowls at the back. Here's some brown sugar, and we've got some just standard white salt, PDV salt, a special salt. You can buy it online. And in this one, we've got what's called Cure 1. And if you notice, I've got a very small amount of it. In fact, we've got 5.4 kilograms of pork here. We've got some belly and we've got some loin. Now, you'll notice, and the amounts of the sugar and the salt, we're looking at about 1.2 kilograms of salt and 1.1 of brown sugar. Now, in this little, and I use a cupcake, it's really easy to use for measuring a small amount. We've only got 13.5 grams of Cure 1. Now 13.5 grams is really not a lot. If we think about what's in here, so I'll go a bit closer, there's literally barely enough to put on a spoon. This is just a standard dessert spoon. You cannot weigh this using normal weighing scales. So what I've got here is a set of scales that you could buy off somewhere like Amazon for about £5. Now what they do is they do up to a 1/100th of a gram. They're absolutely crucial in this process. So the way to measure it as well, it's really important this. So you use the cupcake paper packet there. I tear it, and then we've zeroed it. And what I tend to do is I measure a couple of times to make sure I've got this right. And when I measure again, I've got 13.51 grams there, so it's 1/100th of a gram. I know I haven't gone wrong. I can take this off, and we're still on zero, and I can double check. It's always worth checking several times, because then you can't go wrong. For me, I know, because I've made the bacon so many times, that is about right. But if you're not sure, the ratio always for Cure 1, commonly called Prague powder, is 2.5 grams per kilogram. Now, you can actually make this bacon just literally using the salt and the sugar and no cure, but I prefer a little bit of a pink tinge and a bit of a twang. So you can do it all naturally, or you can have this Cure 1. Now Cure 1, it's quite important to talk about this. Cure 1, there's nitrite and nitrate, and there's Cure 1 and Cure 2. Cure 1 is the cure that we use when it's bacon that we are going to cook. Cure 2 is the cure that we use, and that's when you're making salami. So this is what we often would call Cure 1 or bacon cure, and you have to cook the product. It's nitrite, okay? If I was making salami, I would use a mixture of nitrite and nitrate. And what happens is the nitrates are converted by bacteria into nitrite over time. So if we're using a Cure 2, we wouldn't be able to eat this for quite a long time. So it's quite important that. Now, this is another important step. It's worth trying to dilute as much as possible and spread out as evenly as possible the Cure 1. So I'm going to drop the Cure 1 there into the pepper. So I've dropped it in on top. And then notice I'm going to completely destroy both of these that I've used to measure with. It's really important that none of that, a tiny bit that gets into your food chain, is not healthy, and we need to spread it out. So I'm just going to mix that round. So carefully integrate. So now I've diluted it, and it's much easier to make sure that I've spread it out. So completely there, mix through. Okay. Now I'm going to take my huge bowl of salt, and we'll spread it again all on top, and again we can just turn that in with the spoon, and again what we're looking for is an even distribution. Okay, so I'll mix that through. And I've now got a very nicely mixed pepper, cure 1 and salt. Now then, let's deal with these leaves. So, very simple. Now, the easy way, because these are really dry, is just to crush them. You can shred them, it's only roughly. Just want to give them a bit more spread again throughout the mixture, because we're only going to use some of the mixture. Hold on, let's give it a good mix. There we go, that should do it. We just lost a couple. So again, just nice little pieces. So we've got, you can see, these nice little pieces. So we'll add that into the sugar and the salt. Just give that a mix around. All that sugar can go in. So there we go, sugar in. And again, it's important to give it a good mix. Let's go for a slightly larger spoon, I think. So I've got a big large spoon for this job. So a good mix. I need to make sure that I don't lose anything in this process. Now this is part of the reason why I made sure that the cure 1 was added at the start and slowly mixed through. So whatever happens, I can't end up with a really nasty concentration of cure 1. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to salt effectively this pork, and it's going to get sugared, which are both preservatives. I've got a little bit of sugar left in the bowl. Both of those are preservatives. And so we need to make sure that all of the meat gets an even coating. Now, by my reckoning, I've got about 2.3 kilograms there of mixture. So, if I have 2.3 kilograms of mixture, I effectively need to spread it out over 5 days, because I'm going to add some of it now and then some of it later. So let's just finish off mixing, and then we'll work out exactly what we need to add on first. And really, it's only a rough idea, but it's always useful, especially when it's your first time, to work it out carefully so that you're sure. So we'll get a big set of scales. So there's the big set. We'll zero them, turn them on, put my bowl on. And we thought we got roughly about 2.3 kilograms. So if I divide that by 5, we're looking at about 460 grams. So we need to add today about 460 grams. So let's spoon some in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll do 5, 6, 7, 8, and a little bit. So take a little bit out. There we go, that's 464. So this bowl of cure, I'm going to set that aside, and I need to make sure that I cling film that to ensure that it doesn't absorb moisture. Not just yet anyway. So this is the cure that we're going to use to start with. So there's our cure. So it's fairly simple, nothing fancy, nothing complex at all. I'm doing something a little bit clever today. Let's put this pork down here. Now what I've done is I've got 3 pieces of pork. So if you look, we have a piece of pork. This is a bit of rough pork really. This is loin at this end, and then it starts to go into the sort of rough bit. Whereas this bit I separated off, that's a bit neater. So this bit will make the really nice rashers, and notice I've trimmed it all up so it's neat on the edges, so it'll absorb nicely. And that's my neat bit, rind on, because the actual rind helps you when you come to trim it later on. Stops the absorption, it's not as good, but it's better to do the slices from. And because we're doing the old-fashioned method, it's fine. But you see, this is a lot rougher. This will probably end up being bacon bits, and I'll get a few more slices off here, but it's sometimes useful to make the pieces a little smaller. Let's just set these aside a second. Put these over just out the way. And here's the belly. Now again, the belly has got all of the rind still on, so you can see the rind. I haven't scored it or anything, it's just simple. And again, I've just trimmed up the edges, you can see the belly pork. And what I did is I trimmed off that layer of fat, so you can see you sometimes have a big layer of fat on here. Now that's going to stop the absorption. Now I could have left all the bones on, but if you see, I've just left these small ones. They'll have no problem, they won't get in the way of the curing, and they're quite nice to work through. And you just cut them out slowly. Now what I'm going to do, and there's something actually I should say about this pork. This pork is Packington pork, comes from a farm up in Newark, and it's really good stuff. You can taste the difference, but it's not expensive. So we'll take the cure, and by eye we're just going to put about a third, because we've got a bit of a pork slice here. We'll put a bit of a third in the bottom of the tray, and then just going to add my belly bottom down, give it a little rub. So we'll give it a rub around. Okay, it doesn't matter if you get some on your fingers, that's okay. And we'll just dust the sides a little, because it's only salt and sugar and nitrile. As long as you wash your hands afterwards, you're fine. So I'm going to push the cure in. It's in the bottom of my tray. My tray is just a roasting tin. It's just a normal non-stick roasting tin. Nothing special or fancy. So there we've got our pork again. Now I'll put about another third on this skin side. Okay, and we'll just move that round, so we're just spreading it out gently. We don't really want to lose it down the sides now, because what we're looking for is this, partly the salt to be absorbed, and also for it to draw moisture out, and partly the nitrate to go into that pork. So we're just giving it a good coating. Don't have to be too exact, but you need to be careful. Now what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to put my skin on there, so I'll give it a good rub around, and we'll put our other piece that was actually like his little brother that came off. That can go on top. So you see why I'm doing a double section, because actually this roasting tray, instead of me picking another one, I can do it all in one go, which makes a lot more sense. So let's just very gently then add my remaining cure. So remember, this was a fifth, and we'll just add it on top. There we go, there's plenty on, so probably more ended up on the top. However, when you think about it, there's a clever reason for that. The loin is thicker, so it will take more salting, so it makes sense to give it the extra cure on the first day or so. Okay, so we're just pushing it down so it drops onto the sides, and of course we're losing a bit off the top as we do this process as well. So there we go, and a bit more, and then just do on the inside here, because there's an edge there as well, and basically that's job done. Now you could, some people use juniper berries. Today I happen to run out of juniper berries, so it's a nice one if you've got them, but we've just got a bit of black pepper. Very simple. You can also do a bit of mace, a bit of nutmeg, and you can also do a bit of honey, but my plan with this one is that I think I'm going to use a little bit of honey right at the end. Now I've got a bit of cure on my hands, so that's okay. Just going to scrape that off so we've not lost anything. Now this method actually, it's not so important about the exact quantities, because actually you are over salting and the salt will get poured off in the end. Let me go and rinse my hands. We're now a whole 24 hours on, and I've got my meat. So here's my original tray. There's some water in there now, or some juices, and I've got my bacon cure, the leftover stuff that I cling filmed. I've already taken off 400 grams there. That 400 grams, if you remember from our first portion, we'd split it down, so we've got enough to put a little bit more in each day. Now the first thing we need to do there, let's just remove the cling film from the pork. So there's still a little bit of salt on the top there, but we just need to drain off this fluid that's accumulated. Now the easy way to do it, I'm showing it for the camera, but I'd normally just do this over the sink, but I'm going to show you exactly what we've got. So here's the meat. So there's the top piece, so we can clearly see There's one of our bay leaves that's sort of softened up a little bit, but it's sort of looking pretty much like it was before. Let's go for a close view. So it's a little bit firmer to the touch though, just a little bit firmer, and the rind's just changed a little bit. So we just literally set that aside. There's my other piece of loin. Again, pretty much the same as what it was. We'll set that aside. And here we've still got, so there's a bit of the curing salt still there that's not dissolved. And we'll pick this piece out again. Now this one has started. Now it's interesting, you can see there's a definite pink colour to the belly. Now that pink colour has come from that nitrite. So can you see on the bottom there where it's been dipped in the fluid? That's picked up that pink colour. Okay. Now what we're going to do this time is we'll reverse them so that we get some of that on the loin. Now then, my hands are covered in the fluid, which is okay, it's not a problem. Just move the bacon out of the way. Now you'll see that in my tray, if I just turn that up now, watch the fluid come off. So you can see that liquid coming out. So that's partly the juices from the meat, that's partly all the salts. So you see what this process is, in a way it's kind of wasteful of salt. What we do is we end up losing fluid from the meat. So there's my liquid, because partly what we're doing is we're drying out this pork. Now, very simple. So what we're going to do then, this time, I'm going to swap over, and we're going to put the belly in on the top. So we'll go back to what we're originally doing. I'm just going to rinse off my hands and dry them. Just so I can pick up some of the cure and not get it everywhere. So we're going, remember what we did the last time, the previous day, we put about a third of the cure. Again, I'm just going to put just a little bit of extra now, just more than a third in there, because we said that the loin needed a little bit of extra compared to the belly. We're doing an all-in-one job, so I'll give it a little shake. Now we'll add the loin in. So again, we'll give it a good move around. Make sure it's covered. And we'll just do the sides a little as well. Plenty on the ends there. Because actually tomorrow what's going to happen, there'll be less fluid that comes off. The first day you tend to get the most fluid coming off. So we've got a good coating now, I think on the bottom. And then we're just going to put another, let's just toss it on there, about another third there. So a good third, maybe a little bit more. That can go in there. We'll just gently spread that round again. I'm actually getting quite a smell of pepper now, and also there's quite a smell there for the bay leaves. Now because that's not quite flat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on its top there, so that again we get the maximum cure in the right place. And I'm just going to put it right in the middle, because some's going to fall off. And let's just spread that round, trying to keep it on the top as much as possible, because we want it to sit, don't we? So just let a bit fall off the edge now, and I'll catch it, go around the edge, and we'll rub it in. That belly's looking really good, nice and pink. So just scrape my hands off, there we go. So a nice scrape, and just give them a quick rinse. So there we go. So we've now salted the pork again. And remember, this is the second day, and we've got all of this fluid. That's quite a lot, probably hard to see from the picture. Hold on, let me get a measuring jug and I'll show you exactly how much we've taken off. So, a little beaker here, let's just have a look and see how much we've lost. So remember, we didn't put any fluid in here at all. This is just salt that's been dissolved. and we've got, it's about 350 ml, and it smells quite sterile. All smells good. That fluid must be thrown away. You can't reuse it for anything. It's just a salty, briny solution. Think about it. If you leave that, potentially something nasty might grow in it. So we don't reuse it. We cast it aside. This bacon now I'm going to recling film it. Already it started to sink in the cure. It started to moisten and do its job. So we'll do exactly the same tomorrow. We repeat the process 5 times until all of this cure's gone. When that cure's gone, we'll wash them off, let them dry in the fridge for 5 days, and it's ready for bacon. So that's day 2. So welcome back to our video on traditional bacon cure. Now I've already started, so you've missed part of it already. And if you look, this is our bacon. It's all finished now. What I've done already is I've rinsed these pieces and I've just got them on a board with a bit of paper. You can see our meat is now starting to look, it's a lot firmer, but it's also starting to look a bit more like real bacon. So we'll just put these 2 pieces aside. I'll just show you what the belly looks like as you wash it off. So stream of water, go back to our tub. You can still see there's some salt there still on the top. There's quite a bit that's not gone in, that's okay. Now I've judged that this bacon's ready, it feels pretty firm. What I don't want to do is over salt it, so we just literally give it a good wash down. Now don't worry about this because at the moment this pork's so salty that although we're washing it down, it won't actually affect it. This rind will go really tough with this salt. I've also made sure that my sink is really ultra clean. So a good bleaching before you start doing this, because if you drop the pork in a dirty sink, you're potentially introducing bacteria onto the surfaces. And then of course, if you vac pack that bacon, then those bacteria could well grow anaerobically. So good rinse and just gently rubbing it all over, and all those bay leaves are coming off. Now this meat has gone slightly pink, because like we said at the start, unlike some of the totally traditional cures where it's just pure salt, this does have an element of nitrite, and we can see there are still bones, touching the bones here, all the way through this meat, just these little bones, just quite a way down the belly. And you can see clearly in the light there how red that meat is. So that's enough washing. So we're just going to put it there. Just turn that tap off. I'll just show you again. There's my tray, and it's literally covered in the curing salt still. That just all gets chucked away at the end of things. Horrible sort of goo. We don't need to worry about that one. So what's the next step? Well, it's very simple. The next step, I'm going to take the meat, I'm going to pat it dry now. So we're going to get a bit more kitchen towel. And we're just going to get rid of the surface moisture really all round. So a good patting dry. And then I'm going to put a hole in the meat. So just with a skewer, I'm going to make a hole, and then I'm going to use one of these hooks and we're going to hang it in the fridge to dry overnight. The next stage after that will be smoking. So I'm going to put the hole in and I'm going to hang it up, and I'm going to do a little video to show you what it looks like in the fridge. So welcome back to the traditional bacon cure video. I've skipped on a little bit again, but I'm going to show you, I've just got this last piece to do now. I'm going to hang it. So what I tend to do is I use these very simple IKEA hooks. So they're made of metal, they're very strong, so they don't tend to rust or contaminate the meat. I've got a nice roll of butcher's string. It's about £5 if you buy it online. Shouldn't cost you any more than that. It's nice and strong, nice and tight weave. Now the bacon itself, the pork, of course, has still got the rind on. That's part of the really clever idea. So what we do effectively is we try and skewer through the rind. So we're just going to literally here, just about an inch in, So I'm using my meat fork. So I make a hole, I go all the way through, and I just loosen it. And then my piece of string, so it's about 1.5 feet long, we just feed it in the end, and we'll just push it through. And it's really as simple as that, or it was all the other times I've just done it. And there we go. Yeah, straight in. So that's one hole. And we're going to hang it from 2 because it's a lot easier. Although you could theoretically, something like a pig's cheek, a jowl, that's not very weighty. Sometimes what I do is I just put it straight onto the hook, or just hang it from one piece of string. So again, we'll just feed it through. There we go. It goes through quite easy. The trick is to make the hole and to thread it straight away. So there's our string. We're just going to tie a loop effectively. Very simple knot. We'll just do it an extra couple of times because you don't want it to fall off. So there we go. And then we can leave the trailing bits. We might need them, you never know. I mean, it's very simple then, effectively. We won't see in the video, but I can then hang the bacon very simply. And I've done all of my other pieces the same. So you see we've then got, there's another piece of belly. So there's that one. And we've got my 2 pieces of loin. And I've gone for the loin. If you look, you can see that I've actually done it in the sort of fattier, tougher part, the thinner part. If you've got a very thick loin, you don't want to try and put it through the best part of the meat. So I'm going to take these to the garage now, and then you can rejoin me then. So welcome back to our traditional bacon cure video. Before we put the bacon in, I just thought I'd show you these pieces of meat here. You can actually start to see here, there's a tiny bit of white mould starting to grow. This is pig's cheek, or guacansala as I think it's pronounced, or jowl. And all I've done again is it's a bacon cure, salted skin on, pepper, a lot of pepper on this one. And these 2 have been in for, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks in fact. So they've been hanging in the fridge. Now there's nothing special about this fridge at all really, it's just a standard Zanussi fridge. It's got the cooling on the rear there. We've got a glass shelf here, and you can, if I just pan down a little, you can see it. It's just got some alcohol-free beers in the bottom, and I tend to also keep some waters in here. But all I've done to modify it is, in effect, is we've got some very thin wooden slats. So they're just literally sat at the side. I normally use these in my smoking chamber. This is just some metal piping that I flattened at the ends. So it's just metal pipe work from a wardrobe, and they just enable me to hang these lovely IKEA hooks on top like so, and it gives a really nice area then to put the bacon where it's just going to come around. So effectively we're looking for all that salt that's been absorbed on the outside to permeate through to the inside. But tonight what we're going to do, I'm just going to leave them to dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to do some smoking, and they're going to get cold smoked, and then they're going to go in here for a whole week. So all we do is take the strings, you can clearly see, so there's my 2 holes I've knotted at the back. I'm just going to hook them over. Let's just put them in one by one, see if I can get it over. That's the first one in. So I've got one there. Put one in here. And then the last 2. So 2 more at the front. So that's just going to let them dry off. Now I'm going to leave the meat tray in, just in case we get any fluid dripping out, which I doubt we will. That just keeps the fridge a little bit clean. After a couple of days, I'll take that out again, and we'll be able to put some more drinks in, or maybe I'll make something else. So we'll just make sure that they're evenly spaced. Just move that one back a bit. This is the easy thing about having the removable shelves, just makes it nice and easy. So we're just looking effectively for this meat to get what's called a pellicule. It's like a slight stickiness on it, and that stickiness will enable the cold smoke to stick to it really well. So welcome back to the traditional bacon cure. We're ready to cold smoke our bacon. Now, unlike the Americans, in England we tend to cold smoke mainly, and you could hot smoke with a barbecue or something like that, but what we're really trying to do is impart some flavour, and the cold smoking imparts a better flavour, and just stick some of those smoke particles to the bacon. We're not getting it hot. I've waited till about 5 o'clock, 'cause it's quite a hot day, and I've waited till the sun's on the other side of the house before I employ my cold smoking method. Now, it's really quite simple. If I'll just pan the camera slightly so you can see, all I've got here is a very basic IKEA cupboard, and it's just sat there on my table outside. And if we zoom in a little, so hold on, let's get this right, there we go, let's zoom in a little. You can see it looks a bit dirty. It's just staining from the smoke, and all I've done is effectively I've hung my bacon. I'm just going to go forward now and be able to see exactly, I'll show you exactly what I've done. So if we look here, so here's my piece of bacon. It's looking really nice. It spent a whole night drying, so it's just a little bit tacky on the outside, still hung from the string. So we've got our string, and in here in the IKEA cupboard I've used the little IKEA pegs, and I've drilled some holes where I've got removable pieces of wood. I've got just nice really clean battens of pine, which I keep smoking and using over and over. They're perfectly fine to use again and again, and all I've done is I've just hung all the bacon pieces so they're not touching. If you put them flat it does work, but where they are sitting on wood slats it's not quite as good for the smoke. And then what have I got here at the bottom? Well, let's just pan down again. Just a sec, I'll move this camera down to the bottom of the smoker so we can see clearly what we've got. So if I just disassemble what we've got here, I've just got a porcelain ceramic tile. It's just one of my leftovers from the bathroom, and the idea behind the tile is just to keep any heat off the base, which is just standard wooden cupboard, of course. It doesn't really get very hot. And here we've got, it's a spiral smoker, and it's a very simple device. So we effectively use the tea light there. The tea light goes in, I light it, and then it spirals round the wood dust and burns until we get to the middle. Now, there's not a lot of advice about this online, but the method is to use very fine chips and then a mixture of larger chips. So I've just used wood dust that I've bought commercially, and then this has got apple chips, and they've all been mixed together. And if you don't use very fine chips, you'll find that it will keep going out and you'll keep having to relight it. So it's a really clever method of lighting it really easily. So what we're going to do, so a little lighter, so I'm going to light there, get my tea lit, put that on. Now what I like to do initially is just go down to give it a bit of heat from the top as well, just to get it going properly. Now once we've got it going, we then just blow the tea light out. But initially we're just creating a start here, and I'm doing it as well so that you can see the smoke. So we've got it there, it's lit, isn't it? And we've got the smoke coming. Now what's really important, and you won't see it unless we go right to the top, and at the back of the cupboard, right up here, if I go right up to the top, they've actually got holes. There are 2 holes in the back of the cupboard that are already drilled. Well, the clever idea is, that's where you normally fix it to the wall. Well, those holes are going to draw smoke through. So now we're lit at the bottom. I'm just going to close the door. You'll be able to see what I mean. Oh, and I've missed off another important feature. This is just rubber door seal strip. I've run it all the way around the edge, sticky, and that just keeps in all of the air. So what I'll do later is I'll just tape that door so it's totally shut. Now if I pan down, my clever little feature that I've added, I just drilled a hole in the bottom there. And it's really simple, because what's going to happen is the airflow is going to come in here, and it's going to go all the way up and through, and it's going to go out the back of the cold smoker. That draws the smoke through. Without it, it won't draw it through. At the moment, if we just zoom in a touch, you can see it's only just starting up there. Now, some of you might get disappointed by the look of that. Actually, it's a very slow process, and it's really important not to rush it. So we're probably going to leave it for about 3 hours there. I'm just going to let it burn all the way through, and then it's going to go back in the fridge. Okay, so we're back again. I've left it for about 5 minutes. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to zoom in a little, because as soon as I open the door, all our smoke's going to disappear. So we'll just pull right in, and you'll be able to see the sort of smoke that we're actually getting. So here we go, ready, watching, and oh, you can see there, that's the smoke, and it's clearly, there's not a lot, but and we'll just leave our tea light going just until we've burnt that first bit. And then when you burnt the first bit, the tea light really doesn't actually do anything. So the next time you see this bacon, it will be smoked.